All right, there we go. Okay, we're good? Okay. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Harbor Commission for Monday, November 14th. Let's see. Can we do a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Bauer,
Here.
Commissioner Krazan,
Present.
Chair Carlson,
Here.
Commissioner Kilroy,
Here.
Commissioner Light,
Present.
and for the record, Commissioner Walters and Commissioner Callahan are out. They're excused out, but we do have a quorum and we can conduct business.
Thanks. Okay. Let's go on to the salute to the flag. Commissioner Light, would you lead us, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on to approving the order of agenda. Anybody?
Moved.
Anybody need to rearrange yours? Moved and second, okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Let's stick with the agenda as it stands. Do we have any blue folder items tonight?
We do not tonight.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything on the consent calendar?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so we've got the affidavit for posting, the agenda, and the minutes. Anybody need to comment on the minutes, pull anything?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Do we have any excluded consent calendar items?
Yeah, we don't.
Okay. Okay, we are on to public participation on non-agenda items. If you're here to participate on an item or in Zoom, out in Zoom land, if you have a comment on something coming up on the agenda, you comment later. If you have any comment on a non-agenda item, that time is right now and you get 3 minutes. We start with people in the room. Anybody in the room have a comment on a non-agenda item? Okay. Anyone on Zoom or any e-comments?
There are no e-comments or attendees for non-agenda items this time.
Okay, thanks a lot. Let's see. Do we have any ex parte communication? We do have a public hearing tonight on the conditional use permit. So for once, we're actually asking if we had any ex parte communication on that item. Okay, hearing none, we are going on to item J, the public hearings.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, we do have a conditional use permit for Project Barley over at International Boardwalk. We have our senior planner, Antonio Gardia, here. He's going to walk you through the staff report and the presentation. And the applicants are here sitting in the front row if you have any questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Antonio.
Thank you, Greg. So this item tonight is a conditional use permit and coastal development permit, which are triggered by the expansion of the existing restaurant into the neighboring tenant retail space. All of the uses on the International Boardwalk require an approval of conditional use permit. And even though the expansion is to an existing space, retail space, in this instance, it also is considered an intensification of use and thereby triggers the need for a coastal development permit. The restaurant has been operating as what we consider a legal non-conforming use because there's no conditional use permit that's active for it. So whenever there's changes or an applicant is expanding or doing some other type of incorporating something different into their use, we like to legalize the operations and take them through this process. The conditional use permit process is intended to take a look at the use and prevent any externalities or adverse impacts to neighboring uses. So this is a multi-tenant retail building. It's located midway down North International Boardwalk, and the property is zoned as CC1. all uses require conditional use permits to make sure that they're not operating in a way that negatively impacts either the neighboring businesses or residents in the nearby area. In this case, the one item that we would consider is a noise impacts. There's things that we typically take into consideration with conditional use permits. That's either going to be noise, odors, or traffic or parking impacts. Again, the restaurant is considered a legal non-conforming use. It's allowed to operate within the existing tenant space, but because they're expanding, it does present the opportunity to entitle it. In this case, because it is a use that could have some potential externalities, we reached out to the police department, and there was no incident reports or complaints regarding this use in the past 3 years. The site does back up to some residential, but it is on a lower area, so it's not directly facing those residents that live to the east. So this is a couple of pictures of the site as it's present today. This is a bona fide restaurant. They do serve burgers, fries, tots, desserts, sandwiches, pizzas, as well as beer, wine, and soft drinks. And there's a picture of their menu there. Let's see. The existing tenant space is about 1,000 square feet in size. It's just under 1,000 square feet. And they're going to be expanding, they're going to expand into the neighboring tenant space about 300 square feet total. The expansion enables them to capture another 20 seats. The back of house operations will remain the same. There's no changes there. And the expansion doesn't affect the exterior walkway. That's kept clear. And that's key because that's one of the findings that you have to make for approval of the coastal development permit, that it doesn't impact access. The net 3 additional parking spaces that would be required for this expansion are covered. As you may recall, there was a shared parking analysis that was performed by KOA, which showed that there was over 216 available parking spaces for these uses down in this area. And so that's gonna more than cover what would be necessary for this expansion. The retail space is going to be reduced down to about 176 square feet in size. With that, again, we consider the restaurant as a visitor serving use and an amenity, so it's in compliance with the LCP and the purposes of the zoning code, and staff recommends approval. The applicants are here to also answer any questions, and we didn't receive any comments from the public regarding this use. Pretty standard stuff.
Thanks. I had a couple pretty simple questions. Do we have a tenant now for the adjacent space? Does that tenant stay in there when that space reduces?
Yes, they do. I actually spoke to the tenant. They're already using that space to the south, the southern half, as storage area for their some of the stuff that they're, the empty kegs and things like that. So it's just kind of formalizing that arrangement that they have and then creating that dividing wall.
Okay, and I read through this whole thing. This is a lot of process on their side and on the city's side for a pretty small expansion. And
Absolutely.
I understand from what you said that this is not just because of the small expansion, it's also catching them up. So my question kind of was like, do you think this process can be streamlined for future small expansions, or is there a way we can be more business friendly?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that we have discussed internally, and perhaps the director can provide a little bit more commentary to that.
Yeah, no problem. Essentially, we've kind of discussed the topic of creating a blanket CUP out for International Boardwalk. So, when uses come in like theirs, this blanket SUP for the entire space would accommodate the sale of alcohol. Obviously, there's parameters you have to meet with ABC regarding access with minors and having a controlled environment, but it's doable. So we're thinking about looking into that so that when future businesses come in or they expand or detract, you don't have to go through this big, long process.
especially for someone who's already been operating there and has a history or record of being a reputable business. So we wholeheartedly support their expansion of this use. And they, like I said, they've demonstrated that they're responsible business operators. And so we would hope that if there was other tenants that also are responsible or and looking to expand and just kind of go into other spaces, that we could accommodate them under like a master CUP, so that we could have one set of allowed or uses that will be accommodated throughout the International Boardwalk.
Thanks, yeah, that sounds like if you could only get a new guy in the office, that sounds like a perfect thing for him to do. I have no other questions. Anybody else? Commissioner, go ahead.
Just a couple simple questions. You said it was 1,000 square feet that exists in the current tenant,
Just about, yeah.
and they're expanding 300 feet, and then you said it would leave 176 square feet, but it seems like there's a missing 500 square feet or so. Does that make sense?
It's, yeah, I'm trying to remember what the, let me see if I could go back to the drawing here. The existing tenant space is, gosh, I can't read that, what it says. Oh, it's so hard to read. They're taking about half of that, and it's, I want to say it's,
960?
no, it's, I want to say it's close to 500 square feet, but I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's,
What's the name of the existing tenant? Is that Spy Base place?
yes.
And just curious, by now you're going to end up with a 176 square foot place. If Spy Base left, does that make that harder to lease then later on, or do people like smaller?
We did consult with our leasing arm at the waterfront, and he was very confident that he could lease that smaller space out in the future. And in addition, in speaking with Project Barley, they would likely want to expand into that space in the future as well. So I think we would be okay.
Okay, excellent. And that is it. Oh, well, kind of what makes it legal non-conforming? What would be the conforming use for that spot?
Well, all of the uses require conditional use permit. There are some uses that have processed conditional use permits, and those would be legal conforming uses. But because many of these were already pre-existing before this requirement was put in place, they're grandfathered in. These uses are grandfathered, or what we technically call legal non-conforming.
I see. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, that's good.
Thanks. Commissioner Kazan, anything else? Commissioner Lay?
Sure, couple 5 questions. Is there a storefront upgrade with this?
It's not included with this, but we did meet with them today to talk about that program, and they're interested.
Okay, and want to take advantage to spiff up the place while we're doing it. Between the 2 uses today, go back to that drawing if you could.
Yeah.
Is that a concrete wall, or what is that?
No, actually there's no wall in there in between that there right now. I mean, there is in between. It looks like it's just a simple demising wall, and it looks like it could be taken apart pretty easily, and then the other wall constructed in its place.
Okay, so it's not a support wall
It's not,
or anything
no.
like that. Okay.
Doesn't appear to be.
And the kind of door that one shows a swing open door. Is it a garage door or a roll-up door? What is the door?
That would be a question to ask the applicant.
Okay.
That's a good question. Because I think there's intentions to maybe replace the doors with something different. And so maybe if they all coincide, that would be a good opportunity to do an improvement to
That's what I'm
the whole
looking, I would
storefront.
hope it looks consistent with the other 2 existing doors to get into the place. I didn't see, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see any construction hours or constraints in the CUP.
We didn't have any. That's something that we typically do put in to prevent impacts to residents.
One could have impacted the existing businesses to either side. Right?
Yeah, it could also, it could potentially impact the neighboring businesses. The restrictions that we have usually are for weekends. That's the one restriction that we place. But otherwise, the construction hours are usually, standard hours from Monday to Friday.
Okay.
We could always add that in as a condition. No.
And there's, well, we should, I mean, if we don't put anything in, is the weekend restrictions still in there?
There's noise restrictions that would otherwise govern because, you don't want to operate any loud equipment.
Yeah, because I'm used to a whole bunch of construction,
Yeah.
requirements in the CUP, and I don't see any here.
Yeah, so like I said, there's usually for like residential projects, there's limitations on the construction hours.
Right.
And we coincide those with the noise ordinance requirements. So it's no construction between like 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. or on Saturdays. So we can always fall back on the noise ordinance to restrict, when they're doing construction. But if you wanted to impose something more strict, then you're always welcome to add
So
that
you're saying
in.
we're covered even if we don't put it in the CUP?
Yeah,
just by
I
the
don't think it
noise?
would be I don't necessarily think it would be a problem in this case.
Okay.
It seems like a pretty modest, very small project.
And there's no outdoor dining with this project?
No,
So what are those circles that we see outside?
they look like benches that are facing inward, right? You mean like down here?
Yeah, are those seats outside?
If you go to the photo of the front, I think they're bar stools right on the rail.
Yeah,
I've-
right there.
I've seen it from a distance.
And so that's not considered outdoor dining? There's no,
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, and what about amplified sound? Any,
Amplified sound is covered under entertainment permits, like different level 1, level 2 permits. And they've requested those in the past. And
On a case-by-case
without
basis?
incident, yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
it's not a normal band like
No,
notches
those
or?
are granted. It's a separate entitlement process for those entertainment permits. And
So
usually.
you do one each time for nausea? Every time they have a band? I thought they just had a blanket.
I
Can we have-
don't know.
And like
I
starboard
couldn't-
latitude, I think there's standard hours when they could have amplified sound.
Mhm.
And so I guess we need to talk to the applicant.
Yeah, I wouldn't know about the nauseous. I didn't ask about that.
Okay, can we talk to the applicant yet?
Yeah,
Could we get you guys up here? Yeah. So should have had you up earlier, sorry. Okay, so can you answer some of those questions? Are you looking at doing anything with the storefront?
We definitely are. We've been talking with Greg about how to make it.
Hey, Dave, can you turn on the mic?
Sounds like it's on.
There you go.
There we go, there we go.
There you are, you're live.
Check. I'm in a band, so.
And there is a button to raise that up if it's more comfortable. for
Yeah,
you.
we definitely want to improve the front. I walked over here from my house. I walked to work, and one of the things I want to do is bring my kids down, and it hasn't been the best area to do that. And we think since we've been there, it's kind of helped improve. Lots of families are coming down, and the next step for us, we took over during COVID, so it's a little, holding on to the purse strings a little bit, but now the time's ready to go. The wall is non-load bearing. We're just moving it 12 feet, which, I don't think you have to worry about noise. We think we can tear it down and build a new one in a day. Yeah, part of our vision is putting, the doors have probably been there 100 years. I don't know. And they don't work for us very well. They don't work for, the flow of how things go. So we do plan to do that. As far as the entertainment permit, we already have an entertainment permit. Couldn't tell you the exact hours, but it's kind of the standard.
It's an open-ended one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's open-ended, yeah.
Okay. Any plans for outdoor dining in the future?
We would love to, but we tried to put tables out on the front and
Yeah, we're talking the upper deck, I think.
yeah, we tried to manage that ourselves, with everybody putting kind of COVID type structures up. They were getting torn down and vandalized, and
Yeah.
we were responsible for upkeep, and we're out there every day trying to sweep and pressure wash and all the stuff that we it was just impossible for us to keep up with.
Yeah.
Plus bringing kegs of beer up there, and then when they stopped saying you can take beer up there, that made it kind of hard for us to operate that way. So
Right.
yeah, but we up until last week we still had our tables up there, and we would tell people to go eat up there, but they couldn't take their beer.
Okay.
So,
And your intent then is to make all three entrances look like they're part of one
it's actually
business?
4 entrances. It's really hard, and all of the doors are different sizes, which
Yeah.
is mind-blowing. But we as of today, with the storefront improvement situation, we started looking at how we can make it better. A good example of what we'd like to do is next door at King Harbor Brewing Company. They have these nice big glass roll-up doors, and we'd also like to take one of those doors out so that we can put in an actual door, so that if it's cold outside, we just roll all the doors down, everybody's warm. All of our whole front is wide open, and it's freezing in there when it's cold, and we're trying to get people to come, and it's,
We still have to have two egresses, right, for emergency?
There will still be 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to have 2 ways out of anything.
yeah,
Okay.
so we wanted to make the inside ones kind of permanent, maybe during the winter, permanently closed, and then an actual door that people can walk in and out of, and then one roll-up door open.
Okay. Okay. Construction, do you have any heartburn with not doing it on the weekends?
Like I said, I think we can do it in a day. Mondays are pretty slow down there, so we'll probably start early and, try to knock it out.
Okay.
I mean, the wall can come down in less than an hour, and the new wall can be up in an hour and a half.
And it's just
We
making
think
it
It's just
pretty.
nails, drywall screws and a couple, 2x4s, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal.
Okay. Anything else you want to tell us before we?
Thank you. I loved your comment about being friendly to business. It seemed like, we're just going to move the wall 12 feet. And here we are getting a CUP and all this other stuff. But I mean, we've opened other businesses. We understand how it goes. But it's cool that you're taking that into consideration.
And frankly, it's also a lot of work on the city side. I mean, I'd rather have you guys, doing more than, moving a wall 12 feet.
Yeah.
So.
How long have you guys been down there?
We signed a lease in September of last year. So a little
Last
over a
year. So how, I guess I don't understand why they didn't have a CUP from the start. How they become a grandfathered non-conforming use if they just started a year ago?
I can tell you.
Okay.
So if a business sells and the next business owner comes in within 3 months, then you can just open.
You just
and
ride there.
keep going. Yeah, you have to transfer all the licenses over and all that stuff. But yeah, within 3 months with the health department and most of all this kind of stuff, you can just roll in and kind of take over the existing.
Okay. Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Thanks. Commissioner Kilroy.
Yeah, that's why they played whack-a-mole with massage parlors on Artesia Boulevard, because you shut one down, but the CUP just rolls over to the next operator. And so they changed the laws with regards to that. Decades ago, when I was on the Planning Commission, literally decades ago, I had a conversation with the property manager with regards to hours of operation in a CUP. And his comments were that the hours of operation should be a shall, not a may, to some extent anyway. There should be a minimum of operating hours so that there's continuity amongst the businesses, especially like the International Boardwalk. Comments about that? Because I'm looking at number 10 and it's may be operated. Any comments about?
Yeah, the condition should be actually a shall, and we do want consistency in the hours of operation for all the businesses. And so we just, we took their existing hours of operation and had that reflected in the conditions.
Any problem with making that shall instead of may?
I don't think so.
We're open 7 days a week.
Okay,
Yeah, we're one of the few down there that are.
well, I would make that change then to the conditional use permit so that it's a shall.
Respectfully, I disagree with that a little bit, because in the wintertime, like,
It's rough right now.
I go down there a lot, and I'll be one of the last people outside in the winter on a bad day drinking a cold beer. but I can see why people don't come down there. And on a Tuesday afternoon when it's cold and rainy, to make everybody open up and staff up, you lose money.
Chair, I just want to clarify that the conditions are the outer limits. It doesn't, it restricts how late they can stay open. It doesn't restrict if they were to close earlier or
Okay,
open
I
later.
was taking his comment the opposite way. I'm sorry.
No, you really weren't. And I had the same concern when I had this conversation decades ago. But that's why I said the consideration of some minimum hours. And I appreciate where you're
Yeah.
coming from, and I kind of felt the same way 30 years ago, 20 years ago when I had this conversation. But the property guy made a case for the consistency. People come down there, they expect, certain things to be open, and all of a sudden someone's shut down, someone's still open, et cetera, and it's not good for business.
Naja's has broken my heart on many Tuesday nights in the wintertime by being closed.
And so, and so if there was some consistency with a minimum set of hours, even on those cold nights, I throw it out there as it's just something we want to consider because there is a positive business effect to it as opposed to everybody picking and choosing whether they're open or not. Yes, sir.
It's actually in our lease that we have to be, it's maybe also decades old lease, but it has hours of operation, and it's mostly for retail, which is frustrating to us. It says we have to be open at 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. every day. Obviously, we don't open at 8 a.m. and we go later into the night. And we actually get emails from the property manager saying, remember, you have to be open during these hours. And so for the first entire year, we opened those hours just so we would fit this mold that didn't really fit our business. And I will say that we were the only ones. Like half the people are closed half the winter. I mean, who's buying churros on a Monday or Tuesday?
I was pouring beers at 8 o'clock on Monday. I wasn't pouring any beers at 8 o'clock on Monday.
Yeah. So it's a weird lease that we've got. And
But the lease is from the city,
the lease is from the property management company, I believe.
but
But it-
that's,
No, it's from the city.
It's from the city.
From the city, but yeah.
well, so I guess my whole point, and thank you for bringing that up, because it goes back to my original point, which is some consistency of minimum operating hours. And I'm all a believer of giving businesses the opportunity to flex and minimize time and whatnot, but that there ought to be some minimal hours that businesses shall be open around the harbor area. And 8 a.m., really, I agree, doesn't really sound like probably ought to be it.
Right.
So that looks like something that ought to be looked at on a wider scope.
We open at 11.
Yeah, so
I start drinking at 11:30, I understand.
We'll be ready for it.
Just kidding out there. So anyway, that's my comment.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I hope we get the foot traffic down there and even the foot traffic up on the second floor as we, fix things up and improve the dining and, it becomes year round and every day. Sorry, Commissioner Lane.
I was just going to say, I'd hope that we wouldn't burden these guys with that on their CUP since they're burdened with the lease right now. Maybe we could table it and agendize it to talk harbor and maybe pier-wide separately on what the policy is so that it can get rolled out for the future, but not solve that tonight.
Yeah, there's no doubt there needs to be some thought put into what those hours should be and looking at the array of businesses we have and what would actually fit best in that model. But it is.
Yeah, because like a paddleboard place, people are going to come in the morning and they're not going to be there when it's dark generally. But a bar is a different beast. So
This is one of those things we could get feedback from the business owners and see what they
Yes.
think. If they think that would be advantageous to have set hours.
So I'm not making a motion, but I recommend we table that for now and maybe agendize it for another general discussion for the harbor and pier.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Because I agree
I just
with
wanted
the
to bring it up.
concept, and I've seen it with like malls, you have to have, everybody's got to be open and everybody's got to close. And but this is a different beast because it's in the harbor, so,
You have no malls in the harbor.
no, thank God.
Now we're really getting off topic. Okay.
Sorry.
Any other comments on the application? Okay.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you so much.
In that case, is there a motion?
So I'll make a motion to approve the CDP and the,
CUP.
CUP as written.
I'll second it.
Not adding the shall?
No, not at this time.
Do we need to close the public hearing first?
Yeah, we probably do.
Thank you. Yeah, we haven't had many public
Well, we
hearings.
haven't opened the public hearing. We haven't-
We should hear from the public first, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you're right, let's.
So we
open
got
the public hearing.
we got a motion and a second. We could hear the public now, and since they know which way we're headed.
Yeah, so let's open up the public hearing. We haven't had a lot of these, so excuse me if I'm being a little rusty or don't know the proper procedure here. So let's,
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
okay. All in favor of opening the public hearing?
Aye.
Okay. Let's open the public hearing. Are there any public comments from the room on this item? Okay, seeing none.
I'll make a motion
You
to
don't
close
want
the.
mashed up dry
hang on.
storage in there?
Do we have anything in Zoom or e-comments?
There are no Zoom comments or attendees at this time.
Okay. Sounds like we can close the public hearing.
So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Really quick, I just to interject myself, I do want to give you guys just a quick update. City Council on November 8th actually modified the code of conduct for City Council and the commissions, and we no longer have to read the e-comments into the record. So by way of recognizing that e-comments are still a thing and we'll still accept them, what we're going to do instead is indicate how many we've received and how many of those totals are in support or in opposition of whatever the topic is. Okay?
It's a good idea.
They'll still be part of the record, but we won't be actually reading them out. I think City Council is having a problem with just the length of time. Didn't mean to interrupt, but kind of did. Go ahead and continue.
Good to know, thanks. Okay,
We have a
So,
motion, second to
we
close
have
the
a-
public hearing.
Yeah, close the.
I know we have a
public hearing.
motion. Did we have a second to close it?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Okay. Public hearing is closed. We now have a motion and a second on the floor. Why don't we do a roll call vote?
Sure. Commissioner Kilroy,
Aye. Yes.
Commissioner Krazan,
Yes.
Chair Carlson,
Yes.
Commissioner Bauer,
Yes.
and Commissioner Light.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Congratulations.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for coming down. Okay. Let's go on to the next agenda item. Let me bring up my screen here. So that was our only public hearing of the night. We're up to
Items.
item K, items continued from previous agendas. We have none of those. We're up to item L, items for discussion prior to action. First one is L1, discussion and possible action on the selection of a dry boat storage subcommittee of the Harbor Commission.
Yes, I don't have an official PowerPoint presentation for you for this one. But essentially, as you guys know, we recently adopted the Public Amenities Plan. One of the recommendations from this group was that a subcommittee be formed to review potential locations for dry boat storage. That motion was supported by City Council. So we're back here to actually formalize and create that subcommittee. We're looking for 3 volunteers, and I'll let you guys discuss.
Okay. Any discussion, or we're just going right to volunteers?
No, I have
Commissioner
I have a
Light?
question. So are you going to be on the subcommittee?
Yeah, I'll be on it, and 3 of the commissioners will be as well. The way I'm thinking about this is, as RFPs come in for amenity plan projects, we'll meet with the group to talk about the potential for dry boat storage at that time. Obviously, any one of the subcommittee members can also decide that they want to call a meeting, and we can organize and do that as well if we feel like we need to do so more frequently. But essentially, it's just to kind of keep a tick on dry boat storage and make sure we're considering it throughout the harbor.
So the way I was envisioning this subcommittee is
Sure.
that we do some pre-work to say where, what are the right places for the different types of dry storage.
We can absolutely do
Because
that as
there
well.
were some good things brought up in the city council meeting where they said, do we want a fence all around the Sambas thing?
Right.
That's an eyesore, and frankly, I hadn't thought of that. And so I think it would be good to pregame before we go into RFPs. So we have some idea, and we're still open to change, but at least we've got some things that we're shooting for
Sure.
ahead of time. And would you be averse to pulling in anyone from the public into that?
Well, now we're creating a work group. I know it's semantics, but that would be a work group. As long as it meets the intent, I think we could do it. Maybe instead you have the subcommittee and you don't have members of the public as a part of it, but we can invite people in on a case-by-case
I like
basis.
that.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the upper deck where, we just went and talked to the restaurants. We just want to talk to, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we were open to pulling in the
Yeah.
public. We're not just sitting in our own shell and.
Yeah,
Because
and I
there's
had the
things I
same
didn't
idea
think
as
of,
you
like
to do
what-
the pre-work. And, there's the 3 recommended sites and the council did bring up a couple really good considerations of views from International Boardwalk out and the fence and the pre-work will help us.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll make some comments as well. When we were talking about this, and it may have been me that proposed it, I don't really remember. My thinking was a little different. I had been thinking that this committee or work group would go out and research how this is done elsewhere. And then if a vendor comes in, whether it's an existing marina owner or, some other vendor, hey, great. But I had been sort of thinking we would put together an outline of what this looks like. And if it's feasible, we present it to the city council and say, hey, city council, here's what it takes to do it. Here's what it costs. Here's the staff it costs. This is people are going to pay $100 a month for a spot, and it's going to take, 3 members of staff, and it's going to cost the city, $500,000 a year and 2 acres of land,
Right.
So, here's the actual cost benefits. And the way I was thinking of it was kind of like, if you said in the amenities plan, let's put in a baseball diamond, hey, you know what that looks like and what it costs and how it works. But if you say, let's put in a whole Little League program, that's a lot more complicated, and you really need to, do a little more legwork on presenting what that looks like. So, maybe this will be on me if I'm on the subcommittee to go look at other harbors, how this is done. Is it fenced or not? Is it staffed or not? How does this work and what does it cost the city? Because obviously there's some level of people who are interested in it. Obviously, we generically think it's generically a good idea, but I don't know what the cost of it is. I don't know what the cost of it is, per month for a user, for the city, for, a stand-up paddleboard, for a small paddle boat, or, whatever.
Right.
And I feel like we're supposed to be the experts, the city council's not. We're supposed to go study this stuff and then bring that information to the city council and let them make a decision on it, same as they did on the boat hoist. We said we like it, they said costs too much.
Right.
That's how that goes. So, I feel we as the boating experts should go, do our homework and say to the city council, if you want to do this as a city service, here's what it looks like, here's what it costs.
Right.
And, I may be volunteering to go do a lot of work on my own, perhaps with some help from, some residents. But that's how I saw this.
Yeah, I think the economics of it, the whole thing is the underpinning of it, whether it's going to make sense,
Yeah.
and where.
Yeah, if it's just a, a fenced yard with a free fall in it, I don't think that's, what anybody wants or,
Right.
thing to do. So, any other comments on this, Commissioner Kilroy?
Yeah, I was thinking about from an economics point of view and was thinking about whether you get an operator for private land or they take out a lease of the city area and how that would work. We can certainly get data, I'm sure, on what the market rate or what the market will bear for a certain size spot. But I think the missing part of the data that I would like from the city is what revenue do we expect if you go and take a prime chunk of our marina leasehold and utilize it for massed up storage, what are we losing? Or are we losing? What would be the expected revenue per 1,000 square feet if it was some other reasonable use?
Right.
And so that we can have a comparison, because in my mind, that's the only way. I think that's an important piece of the information. There are other tangible benefits to massed up storage as far as bringing people down and getting revenue from them while they're down here. So I'm not saying that's the total litmus test on it, but I think it's an important piece of information that's needed to evaluate different areas as far as their appropriateness for massed up storage. Just a thought on the economics part of it, you know. Do we have a number on that, by the way? Or is that something you'd actually have to crunch?
We'd have to figure that out, right?
It would be a great number to know, though. And even going through the exercise and figuring it out would be a really healthy exercise.
Yeah.
Especially since perhaps you could then start comparing it to other harbors.
Yeah.
We can include all of this in the subcommittee. I think these are all great ideas. Yeah,
You know, at the high end, you could go buy a monthly parking pass today.
right.
So, you know, there's a number.
And park your boat there?
Yeah.
Could you really?
I'm sure there's some limitations there somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, I personally would think that the city, if they don't have a rule against it, I would think you would want to make a rule against doing that, because the parking is for businesses and whatnot. It would create a huge problem.
The city's
But-
got a rule against leaf blowers too. Come on over to my
I
house.
know. Come to my house too. But you do bring up an interesting point. And in the same way, parking, yes, we make revenue off of it on the one hand, but we don't expect the revenue to necessarily meet the same standards that a shop or store or something else would. Why? Well, because there's the other benefits of having parking available. People come, they park their car, and they spend money. In the same way, massed up storage also has that. So maybe comparing it to parking revenue might be something that's a comparable mark. I don't know. Certainly would be easy to compare it to parking revenue per spot, because that number's pretty readily available. Anyway, yeah,
But anyway, you see the kind of things that the subcommittee
Sure.
can start to chew on.
sure.
Commissioner Lynch, your hand went up again.
Yeah, I just want to, we're kind of gaming it here. I think that's something I think the economics and the operation model, do we outsource it for someone else to run? Does the city run it, through the marina operator today? Or, that's something for us to kibitz on. There's a whole lot of variables that I don't think we're all, going to think of tonight. So I think
The
overall,
demand
looking at the
signal, too.
economics of it is good, but to pre-describe what all of them are, I think is, because there's the other trade of, we could trade off slips for dry storage, and then you get bigger slips and you get more revenue from bigger slips. So, there's all that, there's a whole bunch of trade space in here. So I don't want to presuppose we got everything tonight, but I think as long as Greg is open to pre-gaming versus waiting for an RFP,
Absolutely.
I think, I'm ready to go on this thing.
Great. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, then. Looking for volunteers. I'll throw my hat in the ring. Anyone else?
I'll throw my hat.
I can do it. I'll do anything else.
I can do it too.
I can do it too.
Okay, so we have 5 volunteers. We can have no more than 3. Let's see. Last time we picked for the Seaside Lagoon based on who'd been there most recently. Tough to do that with small boats.
If somebody, I'll gladly take my name out of the hat if, somebody feels strong. It looks like I'm kind of like thinking about the economics and making sure that we're not losing money. And as long as that's being addressed, I think I feel confident in everybody else up here being able to analyze the possible areas and come up with something. So I don't need to be on it if somebody really wants to do it. I can go play golf. It's fine.
Thanks. Okay.
So now you're down to 4
I don't care.
out of 3.
I mean, I'm fine with going with the first 3 that volunteered. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
Okay.
First 3 that volunteered.
Yeah, that's 3. I think that's what Tom's
Back in.
Because you each brought 3 different kind of unique,
perspective.
Yeah, I think-
focuses.
I agree, yeah.
You're on this committee as the voting representative.
That's true.
You bring a different angle by representing boats or small boaters or, paddlecraft or anything like that. Just asking if you're looking at this a different way than we would.
Maybe, I don't know.
I've certainly used small craft as well. And I really want to see stand-up paddleboards be able to lease spots in here as well.
Yeah.
So,
I can do it.
okay. All right, I don't want to force anybody at this point. Leslie, Roger, and Jim?
So moved.
Second. I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Do we have any public input?
Oh, do we need public input on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, Mark.
Great job. This is going to be a lot of fun. Of course, I'll help you guys in to every single way I can. As a guy who races a 19-foot catamaran up and down the coast, I've been to a bunch of those boat ramps, and I know some of the managers at some of them. So I just look forward to supporting you guys in what I think is a very important public amenity for our city. You've gotten my 2-page dissertation on why we should have it. So thanks so much. Looking forward to working with you.
Can I withdraw my name now?
Nope, too
Just
late.
kidding. Okay. So we are still on public comment. Any other public comment on this? Any?
No
Zoom
comments
comments?
or
Okay.
attendees at this time.
All right, thank you.
Any director comment?
Let's do this.
Okay. All right, so we are up to a vote on this. Let's just do a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. That takes us through item L1, and we have another subcommittee. Let's go to item L2, discussion and possible action regarding an update for the King Harbor Public Amenities Plan.
Yeah, staying on topic here. City Council approved the public amenities plan on October 18th. And I just kind of want to summarize the action that they took, because for the most part, they agreed with every recommendation that you guys highlighted, and even cemented some of the items that you proposed, that you supported, and emphasized that support that was already in the document. I say for the most part because the one area that you alluded to earlier was the boat hoist. You guys actually did take a straw poll vote to preserve that, and City Council ended up saying that it actually needs to be removed once the public boat launch is constructed. So once that's entitled, constructed, and it being used, that's when the boat hoist would essentially be pending removal at any point at that time. In the staff report I provided, I had a laundry list of items that essentially just concurred with all your other motions. The formation of a subcommittee for the dry boat storage being one. Making sure that there's this general statement in there that connectivity, kind of look and feel, extends past into Mole A and further into Veterans Park, just as a recommendation. Prioritizing that waterfront promenade, the design of that, so extremely early in the design process, so that when these individual RFPs come in, they know what portion that they're building. The wayfinding, that kind of thing. Making sure that the Seaside Lagoon was fully fenced at optimal times in the summer. The permanent vehicle drive-up access, they did agree with, so that drive-up access to the hand launch is being included in the final version. I'm not going to go.
A different configuration.
It could be any configuration, just that it be explored and implemented.
I thought they directed the one-way drive
They
through.
talked about the one-way drive because it was the exhibit that we actually showed them when they brought the subject matter up. But ultimately, they said, Sorry, some ambulance thing going on over there. But ultimately, they said just make sure it happens. They didn't want to pigeonhole us into an exact design. We eliminated the harbor patrol slip that was at the small boat launch. At first we thought maybe just get rid of, reserving that slip for just the harbor patrol, but now we're just getting rid of it outright. There was some conflict with, a motorized boat being near non-motorized craft, obviously. Preservation of Dedication Park, that small kind of enclave that Leslie pointed out. Really, there's the removal of the hand cart. There's a bevy of items that's specifically listed in this report. But I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page, that these corrections to the plan are now being implemented right now. Our SWA is finalizing that plan with these changes. So we'll be good to go. So really, everything you guys recommended, with the exception of the boat hoist, ended up in the document. And really, that was just a receive and file kind of a agenda item. I didn't want to put it as a part of the director's report, just in case there was discussion to be had. That's all.
Thanks. Any discussion? Leslie, go ahead.
So the boat hoist area wasn't looked at by the consultants. So how do we deal with that spot and ideas for amenities in that spot?
So you're right. So that would, removal of that boat hoist would free up some space. Baby dry boat storage, it could be an option, right? There's certain topics within the plan, boat storage being one of them. Flex open space being another, that are open-ended in the plan that just require us to further explore. There are identified areas, like dry boat storage has those 3 areas identified, but we're not pigeonholing ourselves to just those 3 spaces. So
yeah, I guess it would be interesting if we had an hour of the consultant's time just for them to throw out their ideas, not to spend time, a lot of time on it, but if they had an hour of, if you could have done something there, what would you suggest to us? It's just interesting. I think it was it Commissioner Nierenheim maybe that mentioned the boat hoist at first, and I don't know, he just presented a vision that we hadn't thought about of the connectivity of that U shape. Present some options that no one's thought about. So.
Right, it could play a big part in the restriping of that whole area when the boat launch comes in. Just added space for maneuverability or trailer-sized parking spaces or what have you, everything that you need, the queuing lanes, the turnaround area, a lot of stuff's going to get, puzzled around there, so.
Okay. So SWA's done.
They're not done. They're actually preparing with us kind of an elevator pitch of the amenities plan, like a picturesque, a nice brochure, if you will, that we can leave at the desks of state assembly members and such so that they remember us.
Okay.
So they are still working on it.
Maybe you can pick their brain.
I can do that. I can do that.
And for public consumption as well. It'd be nice to have a little, for as a positive.
Oh,
something.
sure, yeah. Whatever we end up with, we'll throw on our website or something, Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be more pretty than anything else, but that's
That's important because you still hear people say we're not doing anything in the city, and they're
Right.
not.
Yeah, to show progress with the harbor. So
Yeah.
having that distributed in a lot of places actually would be a really good idea.
Right.
When's the last time we statused the public on this? I mean, theoretically, the public paid attention during the city council meeting.
Yeah.
Is it worth?
City council meeting and then tonight, really.
Is it worth sending
It was
an
in the
email
press
to?
too.
Right, it was covered in the Daily Breeze, I believe.
Was it? Okay.
was approved.
All right, I was on vacation, so I missed that after. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I covered for you. So did
Okay,
Leslie.
thanks.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, any other comments on
Yeah,
this
I had
item?
a few comments. So, Greg, as you know, during that meeting, I was a little disappointed because I felt like SWA misrepresented some of what we came up with. Like,
Right.
I don't remember us saying we wanted that boat dock there. We wanted the ADA in the hand launch. And
Right.
I mean, my notes said we excluded that right from the start because of the expense and because of the power boat going in there. So I was and then I felt like they misrepresented us on artificial turf and, several things as they were
Okay.
going through it. I was a little disappointed that, I mean, they were right here when we were making the comments that they misrepresented so much. And I had a list, pretty lengthy list of things that they said wrong, but it was clear the council didn't want to go through all the details, so I did not bring it up at the
Okay.
time.
And I can tell you it wasn't intentional. You know, it was unfortunate, but it wasn't for a lack of trying or anything like that. It was, you know.
No, I thought they were very honest on the boat, you know,
Sure.
the drive up access, that they differed with us. So that part they represented, I thought, very accurately. But then there's other stuff that just slipped in all over the place that I just couldn't believe was, you know, I thought we were pretty explicit and it crept back in. So I was a little shocked going through, and I've taken notes as they were saying things wrong.
Right,
So-
right.
So I was a little disappointed in that, but overall, I'm glad, you know, that we're moving ahead as is. I think the boat hoist was a surprise. I'm a little disappointed in that, but it, you know, that's council's prerogative. So, and I just think it frees up, it decomplicates the traffic through there because we had to bifurcate traffic with trailers. So that simplifies it and frees up space we can decide what to do with later, or the council can. So from that perspective, I see it as a positive. I would have done it the other way, leave it in and then scar it to take out, be prepared to take it out, but it is what it is. Yeah, I'm anxious to move forward on this, and I think we did get our last, the major items, I think got in especially with the massed up dry storage. So
Good.
appreciate all the efforts, Sarah. Again, a little disappointed in SWA. So there's no action on this, right?
No, just receive and file.
Okay.
Any other comments?
No.
So the one thing about the boat hoist, and I certainly see the positives with regards to removing it once the boat ramp is in. And one thing that was brought to my attention quite a while ago was the use of the boat hoist, say that 3 times fast, for less abled people. I don't want to say disabled people, but less abled people who might physically be challenged to actually launch a boat using a boat ramp. I don't know if that was considered at all. And maybe after considering it, you weigh the pros and cons, you still end up with the same decision. But I know it was something that was brought up to me quite a while back that I hadn't considered at the time. So.
It was brought up. It was actually kind of a lengthy discussion between a couple of the council members. In fact, it's the sole reason why we didn't get a clear, I guess it would have been a 5-0 vote. The one vote against was because removal of the boat hoist was included. And they mentioned ADA accessible, and I think they named a couple people specifically they had in their mind that would use it constantly. So
Yeah.
To your point, they did talk about it, but the removal won out.
Yeah.
Yep. And I agree with Matt on that. And I mean, we did not have the boat hoist was not original in the MOL-B design for the boat launch, but they put it in because the public came up and wanted it, and maybe they're just trying to appease the public and get a yes vote, but it wasn't in, they put it in, and they preempted it this time. So I don't think there's any action for us unless we want them to reconsider that. And I just think that boat sailed.
Yeah.
Pun not intended, but it worked.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, we don't have a boat ramp yet, and who knows, the Coastal Commission might say you got to keep that in there because there aren't a lot of other hoists around. So.
Yeah, so those people
We'll
will
see.
have a voice because it is in the original jurisdiction. So the city can approve it, but it's still got to get approval of it. Without appeal, has to be approved by the Coastal Commission.
And it's not just disabled people, it's people that don't want to put a trailer, you guys know, it's not, it's people who don't want to put a trailer in salt water, people have a small car, don't want the car going in the water down the ramp on a heavy boat,
No, but the
All kinds of
discussion was
reasons
the
to use it.
cost.
Certainly,
You know,
there's
you
a
have
lot
to
of
have an
cost to
operator
it.
there. You can't let people operate it themselves because of liability and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
There's a whole maintenance cost to it.
Sure.
No, and when we first brought it up in the amenities meeting, which not all of you guys were in, we had said, let's leave it in and let's let the city council kill it on cost. So, here we are. Can't say I'm shocked, but I'm disappointed. What's the next step? What do RFPs go out on? When do
Yeah.
you start getting money from the state for the ramp?
So as you guys know, we've got the Seaside Lagoon RFP out. We've got a subcommittee that's going to review the scope of work. We have a finalist in mind. We're kind of working out the final scope right now before we bring it to the subcommittee. So we have an idea of what we're thinking. We can propose something to the subcommittee. I'm expecting that to happen in the next couple of weeks, to be honest with you. So that subcommittee can look for some email correspondence from me soon. Other than that, obviously we've got big plans. Some of the, short-term projects or big projects, the public boat launch being one of them, the waterfront promenade being another, International Boardwalk outdoor dining being another, Moonstone Park being another. So staff is consistently going out there and turning into fundraising mode. And we've had meetings with Ben Allen's office. We've had meetings with Ted Liu's office. We've had Coastal Conservancy meetings and pre-apps. We've had Coastal Commission meetings and pre-apps. In both instances, the pre-apps were based on verbal kind of discussions where they thought that they could help us out. So we needed to formalize a submittal of this is what we're thinking we want to use for your potential funding. And they're actually working on getting us formal comments on, the likelihood of getting it passed and next steps. We actually expect to hear back from them before December on both those fronts. So at this point, we're in that, money gathering stage, if you will.
Now, Moonstone's already funded, right?
It is. We've got 2.4 million sitting there. The cost of the estimates were a little bit above that, so we're seeking additional money. What we're finding is that there are certain Coastal Conservancy division specifically has money for open space, and Moonstone Park is exactly that. So if they want to build the whole thing, we can keep our 2.4 million.
Oh, that's nice.
That's the angle we're going for right now.
Okay.
I don't have any, resolution to that just yet. Discussions are ongoing.
Wanakila.
Right. So, if we were able to do Moonstone Park and not touch that 2.4 million, we've got that 2.4 million for other projects. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Anything else on this item?
So I moved to receive and file.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Did you want to do public
Yeah, do we
comment?
need public comment on this one?
What are
I'm
we
sorry.
receiving finally?
Staff update on the public.
Oh, just the
announcement
update,
plan?
just updating that, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm a little bit out of order. We shouldn't have voted yet. Public comment? Anything from the room?
We can still receive and file.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah.
Mark Hansen, King Harbor Boater. On the previous discussion about the finances on the dry boat storage, I think that's almost a wasted discussion, okay? You don't put in dry boat storage areas or boat ramps because they make money. You can line the harbor with restaurants and hotels and make a lot more money, which is what we've done for 60 years until the Coastal Commission ordered us to put the boat ramp. And I've said many times they could order us to put the dry boat storage in. So I think I would direct you back to, the 2 pages of items I provided to you, why it's a good idea. In that list, I never typed in because it's going to make us any big money relative to any commercial interests. On the hoist, it's kind of interesting. Right after that city council discussion, I had 2 people come up to me and say, well, how are we going to launch fixed keel boats? Now, it's kind of funny, for all these months and years, that had not been something that was brought to me. And no sooner than we lean away from the hoist, all of a sudden I get these 2 comments. Now, our hoist doesn't launch sailboats with mass up, but you can build hoists that do. So I just want to share with you that all of a sudden this popped up, what do we do about fixed keel boats who don't want to be in slips? On the one thing that kind of I think we missed as we got to the city council on October 18th is on September 12th at your meeting, the minutes that staff provided say preserve space at Mole D and Moonstone Park past 6-0. I checked the video on that, and one of the things I wrote down out of that was the discussion was to preserve space at Mole D and Moonstone Park for potential future massed up dry storage until the location for massed up dry storage is determined. Don't put out an RFP that paves over those, that eliminates that use. Those minutes did not make it anywhere into the October 18th. So that's just one of those things that didn't make it, something you guys passed unanimously. So anyway, that's something, maybe we can somehow provide the city council, because that one caught my eye that didn't make it in. A couple just smaller things. Talk about a private entity to run the dry boat storage. Sometimes when I heard that during our meetings, it almost sounded, too confusing, like we've got to go find somebody who wants to come in and make money doing that. Well, they're not going to come in and make money. That's an obligation we have to provide, okay? And we have 4 obvious targets to run it. We go to the 4 marinas and say, hey, you guys already rent slips. It's not a far stone throw to rent the dry boat storage. Could I steal maybe 30 seconds from you to finish 2 here?
Motion to extend.
Second. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I can tell you back when the Mulbee master plan, had the dry boat storage in there, the past owners of King Harbor Marina, said, hey, we'd be interested in running that. Just seemed completely logical. Final 2, just small things. On the fencing, I get nervous whenever we start talking about fencing. It's almost like a negative landmine. Well, of course, the word fence is a negative word, obviously, but I can tell you, I've gone down the Dana Point now multiple times, and they don't have any fencing. And the final item is there was talk about views being interrupted by stacked storage. And a number of people mentioned, well, no, we were talking about massed up dry storage. You don't stack massed up dry storage boats. So just for future reference, people immediately caught on that made no sense. So anyway, I hope those little comments are helpful. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Any comments on this item? Okay, thanks. I think we're through this item then with the receive and file. Okay, let's move on then. We're on to item L3, discussion and possible action regarding planning for sea level rise. If we vote against sea level rise, will that help?
I hope so.
I'll make a motion that we stop all sea level rise.
Second. So yeah, really just another update for you guys, just to show you the progress that we're making. Real quick summary, historically, we haven't had too much in the way of sea level rise in our LCP, in our local coastal plan. There's a reference that any new development actually include, let me see the term here, erosion and wave uprush studies, so that they individually can kind of review these things on a case-by-case basis. And that's still true. That's the only thing in the LCP that deals with sea level rise. We have made efforts kind of in the last couple of years to sea level rise. In 2019, I think it was, the state passed AB 691, and that essentially required all coastal cities to initiate some studies specific to their own area, not a region, just their own area. And we did that. It was called the, let's see, I think it's just called the assessment, really. And it was the first one to look at King Harbor specifically. It had a brief summary as to like the criteria for how we assess sea level rise. It outlined various inundation scenarios for 2030, 2050, and 2100. Obviously, sea level rising, constantly throughout that time period. It had some estimates to the economic impact, and then it had some phased objectives, short-term, midterm, long-term, that we could take to accommodate for these things. It's one of those things where that assessment appeared before this group, or the Harbor Commission at that time, and unanimously you guys recommended that we incorporate phase 1, which was kind of like the short-term projects to get done before 2030. And that was increase the wall along Basin 3 to get away from the seepage. Other kind of like, I would say simple and straightforward methods, rather than retreating or, bringing the elevation pad levels up of buildings, right? Or actually increasing the height of the seawall out there. Those are higher cost ticket items that weren't included in phase 1. So phase 1 was really identifying kind of the easier things to do. Obviously, by 2030, sea level rise exists, but it's not the 5 feet we all fear by 2100. It's more like a foot. So, you could do this phased over time. That recommendation appeared before City Council I think it was in 2019 as well. Got my notes here. And instead of taking that recommendation, City Council guided staff to create a local hazard mitigation plan. And it was really something that dealt with not only sea level rise, but kind of like climate concerns as well, just, flooding in other areas and disaster relief efforts in other areas. Sea level rise being a large component of that, though. And then specifically in 2020, staff did that local hazard mitigation plan, and council added an objective. They added a mitigation measure, if you will, specifically related to sea level rise. And that was to develop a marina climate resiliency master plan. It's kind of a mouthful. I'll repeat it. Marina climate resiliency master plan. And this would really pick up where that 2019 assessment dropped off. It would be a lot more specific to specific areas within our harbor, identifying exactly what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, the studies that need to be done, and kind of almost like the public amenity plans we just did, provided a roadmap for CIP, future CIP projects, as well as areas where our master leaseholders can help out as well. Obviously, we have master leaseholders that sign on for, contracts in terms of agreement for certain lengths of time, and we trade off terms, length of time for the lease with, physical improvements to the area. Sea level rise being a huge component of that. So this could create a partnership there. So really, with that new direction on October 11th, October 11th, 2021, another presentation was presented to this commission, and you guys agreed with City Council and said, do everything you got to do to get that marina climate resiliency master plan going. The sooner the better. I think a couple commissioners in this room said, we've got to get this done in 2023 so that when funding becomes available from the state, we've got a list of projects that are ready to go. So, by happenstance with staff reaching out to all these various organizations for funding for public amenities, we came across a grant opportunity that we think will actually help with the development of this plan. And that's with the Coastal Conservancy Group. They've got a $100,000 grant right now that will go towards any kind of research that results in an amendment to your LCP. So that's like the caveat. Whatever you do, the end result has to be you're updating your LCP to reflect sea level rise goals and ambitions and development standards and regulations, policies, if you will. I think this resiliency plan would be a great candidate to do just that. It's going to identify every little thing that we need to do, become a roadmap, and if we just adopt it into the LCP, we can get this study, this master plan potentially fully funded. I'm not sure how much, a master plan like this would cost us, but $100,000 is a good amount of money there. In speaking with the Coastal Conservancy Group, they do believe that that number will rise to 150 grand in 2023. In speaking with them, the money is there. It's not always going to be there, but there's not much competition for it. Propose something, City of Redondo Beach, and let's do business. So as of right now, we've submitted, essentially a pre-app with them. We've had 2 or 3 phone calls, 2 or 3 Zooms to talk about, whether or not this program would fit the bill, and it seems like verbally it would. So really, we put together a proposal, and we're waiting for formal comments, and again, next steps, right?
Is that with Megan Cooper?
The conversation started with her. It ended up going to somebody named Mary. I forget her last name right now, but she's kind of the grant coordinator for our region on her team. So again, just another receive and file, but October 2021, that was over a year ago. I wanted to provide you guys an update with where we're at. If this comes through, I think 2023 is doable.
So I was actually gone for a meeting, and I jokingly referred to it as doing research on sea level rise. And I was at a city probably most impacted of any city in the world with regards to sea level rise, Venice, right? They are building, they're almost finished building a wall around St. Mark's that will protect it from sea level rise. It's clear glass, I guess it's class, with pumping for whatever water leaks through or whatnot. It's quite elaborate, and they've been working on it for years. And of course, they built these gates to the lagoon of Venice that can actually shut the lagoon off from the Adriatic, although they've had all kinds of technical issues with regards to the operation of these, and they can only operate them. I guess one of the guys was telling me it cost them millions of dollars just to flip the switch and make them come up, because boats can't go in or out as long as they're up. Anyway, some very interesting things going on in the world with regards to sea level rise, and they've been planning, well, they're way ahead of us, let's put it that way. They're already got things in the works built that are in place and already constructed, so.
Right. And there is a lot of money from the state, being offered for sea level rise. So if we have a plan in place, there's money to be had.
Commissioner Bauer, go ahead.
Just one, I read about how there's a recommendation that we continue to measure, right? Measure what's happening today, because we don't have a real good, obviously the measuring tide heights in Santa Monica, but is that enough? Or is there something we should be doing more to kind of be tracking how bad it's getting and how quickly?
That's a good point. The 2019 assessment usually is kind of like best practice. It's kind of a nuanced science to project these things. There's essentially a best practice that everyone utilizes. I don't know if the best practice has changed all that much since 2019. But again, where the 2019 assessment did a great job of finally looking specifically at King Harbor rather than, the Santa Monica Bay region. There's a lot more details will give us more information on, the type of projects we need to do. There's always three options, right? It's build up the walls, it's, raise the pad elevations of all the buildings, and it's retreat. And it's probably going to be a combination of everything, with hopefully retreat being something that, is sparingly used, but, based on some of the assessments from 2019, it looks like, we do have options. I think it identifies, a complete redo. If you wanted to do all the projects all together right now and redo the seawall, raise elevations, raise walls, it was like a $300 million endeavor, somewhere around there. There's a lot of money out there, but probably not that much. So we're going to have to take a tactical approach to this.
So I don't know of a sea height gauge in King Harbor. There may be one, but I don't know of it. There are some nearby in El Segundo. Chevron watches it closely because of all their stuff, obviously. The county watches heights on the beaches. They measure stuff there, including, how close the water's getting to structures and walkways and stuff that they have to protect and pay for. And then the Coastal Commission does sort of a photographic record. Every time there's a king tide, they have a little photo contest. So there's every time there's a king tide, and there's a couple a year, they end up getting a lot of community photos of everything. And so in time, you can see things. There's a photographic record of things getting higher and higher. I tend to walk King Harbor and take a bunch of pictures and send them in. So there is some record of this stuff.
That's
Anecdotal so far. Commissioner Light, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just a couple things. I always cringe when you say make the leaseholders pay for it, because that's what resulted in, Center Cal being overbuilt, was expecting them to foot the whole bill. So I'm hoping we look for
It's going to be
not just state, but federal money.
Right.
With the infrastructure stuff, and that our last resort is to put it on the marina leasehold.
That's a great point. And my comment was just to say that there is a partnership there. Obviously, feds and the states are going to give us quite a bit of money to deal with sea level rise, but it won't be all of it. So, this assessment, this master plan will, not only identify, where we should target first, second, third, and have, expected budgets associated with it, but, there are going to be areas where the private sector can help, and this will actually identify those options too, and potentially provide a cost estimate for that. So we know, well, maybe that's just too much to put on, King Harbor Marina Group. It will help out more than usual. It's really just going to provide us with the information we need to, tackle this little by little.
And then my second, what did you have something on that?
Yeah, I was
specific?
just
Go ahead.
something on that, which is that we're not creating any money. The money's got to come from somewhere, regardless of, so if it's coming from the leaseholders, it still has to be, they're not just magically creating the money, right? So,
Right. I mean, it wouldn't be us, putting all the onus on them, but, when these lease terms come up for their renegotiated master leaseholds, they propose to us projects that they'd be willing to do. And, if reconstructing a building is one of them, we'll just make sure that the pad level's risen while they do it. It's that kind of partnership to say, well, you're already committed to spending that money. Let's just raise it up so we can handle sea level rise as well. It's one less thing that we have to worry about. So.
And then my second item, you brought up the LCP, and you weren't here at the time, but when we were talking with the Coastal Commission, and Laura, I don't know if you ever ran into this, but Coastal Commission staff, when we were going down there for Measure C, kept coming back to us and saying, your LCP is impossible to ferret out. And you've probably read it, Greg, I mean, it's just changes stapled on top of a
really hard.
very old document, and at some point, I mean, just to communicate with the public and make sure we're able to assess things accurately against it, we should update that thing and incorporate everything together so you can read it front to back and know what you're evaluating against. Because it's impossible. You read one thing one place and then you look and it was superseded by something else and there's no big cross-outs or. And so I would hope that when we're looking at our next LCP change, we actually put it together, clean it up so that everybody can read it and we all have a common ground. We can.
It should be handled
instead
like.
of cherry picking, well, I think this version.
essentially rewrite it, right? I mean, come out with a.
It's not rewriting it. We can't just rewrite it. It's just taking all the chronological changes and compressing them into one. I mean, that's how all the other cities do it. You read the other cities' LCPs, you can read it front to back and you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Ours is like, well, here's the newest one. And then by the time you get to the back, there's the oldest one. And
Yeah, it's a really hard document to navigate. As the new guy for a while, I was like, is this the only version? Am I looking at some outdated version? Yes, that thing needs to be cleaned up
but even
for
the
sure.
Coastal Commission staff commented, every time we went down there, you go, we hate working on your stuff because it's hard for us to cherry pick which things we think are in compliance or out.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that, we can include in the scope and see what they say. I mean, but you're right. I thought that the planning department was tackling that endeavor or had been working on it. I can get a status update for you guys and maybe send you an email. I've heard this topic before and it's
Well, we keep talking about it, but nobody does anything.
It's sorely needed,
And we
yeah.
keep adding stuff to it, so it's getting harder and harder.
Right.
And then the Coastal Commission makes changes, and they're on top of changes we put, that they.
Right. I mean, we don't do that with our municipal plan, our municipal code, or our general plan. Any amendment gets a strike through and an underline, and then
And
it
a
gets
date
updated. Yeah. It should be handled the
Anyway,
same
those
way.
are my two comments,
Yeah.
so.
I'll make a comment, and I've made this before. I worry about the city having the staff to spend this money. I mean, there are so many projects, and it's great that there's so many funding sources, but
Yeah.
you have welcome aboard. You have so many projects on your desk.
Yeah.
So, if you need any help from us, if you need us to go to the city council and try to get you more help, or I would encourage you to think creatively, like, maybe there's interns, maybe this sea level rise, you go to an engineering class at CSU Dominguez Hills or Long Beach, and you fund a clinic project there and make a good professor and a class of engineering students do this as a 3-semester project or something. Think outside the box, or we're just never going to get all this stuff done. And if we can help in any way.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a logjam for sure.
Yeah.
And also figure out best practice for how other communities deal with their LCPs and why is other LCPs better than ours, right? What are they doing that we're not?
More readable, I wouldn't say.
Right. It's just
More readable. But
I didn't mean the LCP. I meant go to an engineering class
right.
and have them sketch out, how you fight a foot or 3 feet or 10 feet of water coming. Or maybe we should all go to Venice. Just a thought.
Sure.
Field trip.
Okay.
I will say the one way that the sewer fund does it is they have an engineer in the engineering department who is paid for out of the sewer fund. And somewhere along the line, it would be nice if some of that money that we are looking to get is used to actually pay for a staff person to, because you got to write the RFPs and you got to vet all the vendors who submit bids on it. Probably writing the RFP is probably incredibly time consuming. You got, I don't know, can you use part of the 2.4 million? It doesn't all have to be used, paid to an outside contractor, so to speak, I would think. Typically with capital projects, you're able to associate some amount of in-house labor to the capital project cost. And using that same kind of model, you almost need to look at having somebody hired for shepherding these projects, and the cost of that hire is put or divided amongst the various capital projects that they're working on. Just a different model.
Just to tag on to what you're saying about students, there's no measurement of the water currently, it sounds like.
Of
No
the,
sensors that measure locally the sea level rise or the sea level.
I don't think so.
No.
I would think some data is better than no data. There's, the seventh graders do marine biology that year. There's an environmental charter school in Lawndale, I think. If we spent a few dollars on sensors, you could probably get students to do projects to at least collect data.
Good point.
Yeah, I've looked into this in the past. There's basic sensors you can buy which could measure,
Yeah.
water temperature, oxygenation, things white sea bass care about. We can measure, water
Sure.
level.
Yeah, I know a teacher at that environmental school. Biology teacher.
Pass me their contact info.
Probably get
Yeah.
Wi-Fi and data log for you too.
Okay. Anything else on this topic?
So there's no action, just
This is a receive and file.
a motion to receive and, public input.
Yes. Any public input on this one? Anything from Zoom
No,
land?
no e-comments, no attendees.
Thanks. Okay,
So I make the motion to receive and file.
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Okay, receive and file. All right, we are, my favorite one. We are down to Harbor Commission nominations and election of chairperson and vice chair. It has been an honor. And someone else can,
So is
Take the
is
honor
there a
next.
staff report on this or just?
No, not
just dive
really. I
into
mean, this is your discussion to go ahead and vote for the next chair and vice chair. And if you need me, I'll be here for, questions, but.
so it typically rotates to the next senior person. Tom is currently our vice chair and would be the next senior person. And understanding Steve is the next senior person after that. Tom and Steve came in at the same point.
Correct. And Steve's not here, but he also sent me an email saying he would request that he pass for this year and be under consideration for next year.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You had your hand up, sir.
Yeah, well, just based on that, I was going to make a motion unless you're going to make the motion.
I was not. I was just kind of discussing the,
So I'd make the motion, we elect Tom to Commissioner Bauer to become the chair and for Commissioner Krazan to become the vice or deputy, whatever we're calling him.
Vice chair. Second.
any discussion? Any
No, it's fine.
running for the door?
Any public?
Any e-comments?
No e-comments.
Mark?
Okay.
Or attendees.
With no further discussion, voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I just want to say you've done a great job.
Yeah,
So thank you.
we should
Yeah,
have
here,
a-
here, Roger, you've done a fantastic
Yeah,
job.
we should
You've
have
been
some-
all over this. You definitely made my transition into this position a lot easier, so I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Unlike me.
It's
You have
great
to
to have
sit
so
here.
much on the agenda these days. and great to be working with you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, do we change seats now, or do I get to keep going?
I think, yeah, technically it's official as of now, so.
Oh, wow.
So Leslie, you're running the rest of the meeting?
No, Thomas. Yeah.
Thomas, I keep thinking Steve.
Well, we're about to adjourn the meeting anyway. Oh, no, director's report.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, I'll help you out, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
The next item is the director's
Director's
report.
report, yeah.
I do have a couple items, mainly just updates. At the October 11th city council meeting, they did approve the 4th of July fireworks show again. Privately sponsored, the fireworks, and there's one that's privately funded from Riviera Village. There's a city-sponsored barge fireworks in King Harbor. And they made a budget modification of $75,000 from the Tidelands Fund to accommodate that water show, fireworks show. There's also the 5K run that's going to be held on July 4th. We've already talked about this, but the public amenities plan was approved on October 18th. And the Redondo Beach Travel and Tourism Board actually did a presentation and a report on, how the last year went and what their tactics to promote additional tourism into the area for the next year is going to be. It was pretty good. It looked promising. They were actually recovering pretty well from COVID. TOT tax was doing well. On November 1st, City Council approved the free holiday parking down at the waterfront. So that's going to continue this year. It's December 3rd to January 1st. So anybody, parking down there, it's going to be free of charge. Let's see. Also, on November 8th, that code of conduct was adjusted to make sure that we didn't have to read the e-comments into the record. We talked about it a little earlier this afternoon. To be clear, there's still a method to utilize and to submit e-comments. It'll still be a part of the record, but it just won't be read into the record. And that is about it. That concludes my director's report.
I could ask a question. The $75,000 from the Tidelands for the 4th of July, how does that compare to previous years? I'm trying to remember what's the standard or what's been done before.
It's basically similar.
Is it?
Same cost, yeah.
I wasn't sure. I know that they've gone and made a flat fee for the parking for that day. Did they do that as part of the?
I don't think they made a motion for that, no. Yeah.
Typically what happens is the parking, or what I know, remember what's been done in the past is that the parking garage was changed from an hourly rate to a flat fee. It's like $20 or something, and they use the revenue from that to offset specifically the costs of the fireworks show. And I don't remember whether that actually covered all of it. A lot of it ends up being how they want to, there's a hard cost for the barge and whatnot, but there's a lot of, I don't want to call them soft costs, but the fire and police overtime and whatnot that I don't know is actually specifically laid out or paid extra for as part of that budget. So the 75,000, what does it cover?
That actually only covers the actual fireworks show and the barge. So the barge alone is about $35,000.
Yeah, I know that barge is expensive
It's very
because I
expensive.
remember the city at one point was paying for the barge and Moffett was paying for the fireworks, I think, at some point going way back. I know that's dating me quite a bit, but he did that where he was actually charging admission, I think.
That's when there was an actual event with music and
Yeah.
crafts and everything in Seaside Lagoon, and that's no longer done.
Yeah, that hasn't been done for years.
For many years.
Yeah.
And then also the parking, it's typically a flat fee only for the Redondo Beach Marina parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did revert back to $2 an hour in the parking structure per hour, regardless of holiday, weekend.
I don't know, they may make more money with $2 an hour. And I guess that's probably to some extent maybe even better for businesses because it provides a little turnover.
Yeah, it's reasonable too, if you're down there only for a certain amount of time, not to be penalized with a flat fee.
Yeah. Okay, like I said, I was just trying to remember how it compared with the past and what the differences were. So 75 grand is the fireworks show. Doesn't cover the overtime for the police because there is a significant amount of that, and whatever other staff overtime there is on that day, because I know there is a considerable amount of extra public works and whatnot that go into that whole event. Okay, thank you.
But if you did fill up the parking lot and you were charging a flat rate of 20, I mean, theoretically, it would offset it by about 30K or so.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It was a chunk of revenue that was, like I said, specifically said, hey, we're taking this revenue and we're using this revenue to offset, which I guess in one regards is kind of equivalent to tapping into the Tidelands Fund for just a little different metric.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see though how much parking revenue, we get for that one night versus doing it on a flat rate and try it both directions and see.
But I would argue there's other intangibles because I think, as was mentioned, by not doing a flat rate, you get turnover. You might actually get more customers down at the businesses on the pier. Someone who wants to eat dinner at Kincaid's or whatever isn't getting hit necessarily with a $20 flat fee. They're able to go in and pay their typical $4 or whatever and not have that extra charge. So I'm not against keeping it at an hourly rate. Yeah, we can look at what kind of revenue you actually generate. Might be an interesting thing to note compared to doing the flat rate. But like I said, there's some intangibles there that I think keeping the hourly rate gives you.
All right,
That's it.
Next we move to M, items from staff.
I don't have any.
I had it,
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
if I may.
Oh, absolutely. You stick your hand up there.
I had just raised it. Another parking question. What's the status of the big parking lot going to the new pay-by-meter parking system?
Yeah, it's ongoing. We have discussions with the community development director to go over some upgrades to ADA parking. But essentially, we've got a lot of the items priced out. Ultimately, we're just trying to decipher whether or not we need to simply restripe or if we need to actually reconfigure to increase the number of ADA stalls out there. So that's a question mark we're still trying to figure out. But once we have a handle on that, it'll really identify the actual scope and we'll be off and running.
And then holiday parking going free. Right now, there's a lot of weekdays down there where it's free now because the gate is unstaffed. Do you think it would be worth going to council and seeing if we could have free parking in the pier area, on weekdays in the wintertime? Because we essentially do now in that one lot. And if you go to, and I know people that go down there for a walk and take advantage of that and things like that.
You mean outside of this 1 month window, expand that out to just weekdays?
The big flat lot, the Captain Kidd's parking lot is empty all winter.
Right.
And if you said, hey, free parking, maybe you'd sell a couple more burgers at lunchtime on a weekday in the wintertime.
Okay, economic development kind of factor in.
Yeah, just, anything to drive traffic down there in
Interesting
the
idea,
wintertime.
yeah. It'd also be interesting if you could get the parking revenue numbers, and see how much, we may not be making that much in the winter anyway, right? I mean,
There's a detailed parking study in this CUP that we saw tonight. I've never seen this before.
oh, I did see all those numbers. I
Yeah.
just kind of skated through it.
Yeah, so, I think we have a lot of this data as it is.
Maybe that's the first step. We can pull that information and
But that was just measuring people parked and not how much revenue was being generated from the,
Yeah, so, but that study may have,
oh, that study, yeah.
I think we have that information we could pull. I mean, it's just a matter of pulling the data. We've got our parking enforcement arm that kind of handles that stuff.
yeah, the unstaffed parking and the pay-by-meter always seemed like a good idea to me, and it still seems like a good idea to me. We can open up that, other entrance. But as winter comes, you see that lot empty and nobody there, it's suddenly like,
Right.
are we going to hurt ourselves or not? I don't know.
Right.
Just a thought. And another question I had on the director's report, any status on dredging? At this point, I doubt it's going to happen in the next spring.
No update. I think our Public Works Department's kind of at a loss for, waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers to get around to the review. It's unfortunate.
Have we contacted them or?
Constantly.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we done with the director report?
I had a question.
I
No,
had
we're still on
questions
it.
for the director's report.
Do you have more?
Oh, no, I'm done. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm done.
Just questions,
Yeah.
questions about the director's report.
I have a question.
I'm done.
How do we read the e-comments if they're not read?
So,
Get them during the meeting? Can we read?
yeah, if you go to your computers, you go to the city website, you go to the agenda page,
Yeah.
and there's a little area that says agenda packet, and then there's one for e-comments. If you click on that e-comments for that specific meeting, you'll see, I don't think we had any tonight, so you won't see any, but
Okay. So we
if
can
there
see
were
them
any,
live. Okay,
right.
thanks.
So you could see them in real time. So if you have that screen up, and I would advise, because we're not reading into the record, that you constantly have those up, just so you know of all the public comment that's happening.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the director?
I just don't know if we're, commission items or director's reports. So
Oh, did we authentically
Yeah.
move forward a little bit?
Jim, it's his first night. Go easy on him.
We're still at the director's report.
Man,
We're
we
asking
blow it on that
questions.
vote.
Yeah. No, but moving right along, if there's no more other questions, are there items from staff or for staff?
No, it's from staff and then.
And that's always seems confusing to me because it's really us asking if there's items that
I
can
don't
help us
have
out with. Right, exactly. Staff doesn't. Are there, Commissioner Light?
I have comments. I'm ready to talk on N if you're ready to move to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we already talked about the LCP, which is one of my pet peeves and, well, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Sea bass grow out. I know the guy went up to film.
Yeah, so I'd like to bring him in for another chat, maybe even sit down with the subcommittee again, just to talk about the cost associated with the initial cost, the running cost, the potential lost revenue from losing a rental slip. I think we want to consider all of that when we propose this to city council.
I thought we already did.
No, we definitely chose a location, a preferred location, and kind of, did some measurements and understand the sizing requirements, and we identified areas that could handle it. We kind of had a ranking of the top 3 and understood that the other ones, I think the other 5 or 6 were probably non-starters. When I go to council, I'd like to have a good handle on the cost of the program. So I'd like for him to return. I've got a couple emails out. I don't think he's back yet because I haven't got a response, but.
Okay. The next one is, it's been 4 years since Measure C was certified by the Coastal Commission, and we're out of compliance with respect to parking. And so I'm wondering when that's going to get a focus. Is that when this new system goes in? Or,
You mean the pay station system?
yeah.
Pay
'Cause
station-
there's a requirement in there for frequent users like kayakers, fishermen,
Uh-huh.
like it used to be where you get a reduced fee or you can buy a book or whatever.
Oh.
And we've never addressed it, and we're 4 years since certification and nothing's been done
Interesting.
on it.
We can look into that because the pay station system isn't doing anything to rectify that specifically. But I think if it's just a matter of having a monthly pass or a discounted rate, I think that's something that we could tackle fairly easy with just our harbor manager.
It used to be, it was just a set $4, it was $8 an hour or whatever, and it was $4 if you came in for the whole day. And they
Right.
saw a kayak, or they didn't have SUPs back then, but
Sure.
the equivalent, they just charge you $4 and you could stay the whole day.
Okay.
And that's what Measure C was meant to do, is recognize those frequent users and entice them back to the harbor, so.
On the surface, that seems like I don't want to say a simple fix, but a quicker fix,
Another document that needs to be updated is there's a parking resolution that outlines all of the different parking fees
Okay.
in the harbor.
Well, 4
That would
years,
need to be updated?
That needs to be
we're 4
updated.
years into it and we're out of compliance, and that's one, there's nothing that prevents us from doing it. Any move on the skate park?
Nothing,
Nothing.
nothing.
Harbor Patrol dock replacement, that was scheduled to start this month. Is it going to?
We had a kickoff meeting a while ago. I don't think construction started just yet, not yet, right? But they're gearing up. I haven't heard of a delay.
Okay. Let's see, are we getting an update on Rubies and On the Rocks?
They are slated for our next hearing for their CUPs respectively. They're working with our planning department right now to get a complete application. And when I say complete application, what I mean by that is they've submitted an application, but some of the information was missing or needed revisions. So they're working on that resubmittal now. It hasn't been resubmitted yet, but they still have time to do so and still make that December hearing.
Okay, and the two bars underneath the pier, I mean, we did that CUP probably over a year ago. Is anything happening down there? Which bars? It was combining the two bars and making their CUP common so they could kind of blow it open and make it one big bar.
These are the basement locations for
Yep.
RDR, the landing. They
Yeah,
have two
it's
basements.
Resnick's.
There hasn't been any movement on that.
Okay, and what about the Mason Ritz? The guy who was in the fun factory was going to move into there. Is there any movement on that yet?
But I know, do you?
That's the project that Daniel's working on.
Hey, no whispering.
Okay. There is movement on that. We do have a submittal. He has submitted for a CUP as well as building permits, and he's phasing out that project because certain components of that require entitlements and coastal review, and certain elements do not. So yes, those are in with the planning department and building department respectively as of a week and a half ago.
Okay. And then my last item is more for the public. It's just, the dates for Beach Life have been published. It's May 5th to May 7th, and you can get your tickets now.
Who's the headliner?
I don't think they've announced. It's just early bird tickets right now. At least I didn't see a headliner. That's all I had. Thanks.
All right, anyone else? Hearing nothing, let's go to commission items and referrals to staff. Does anyone have?
That was my.
That was yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I thought that's where we were.
That's it.
Matt?
Len?
I don't
He's
have it.
looking at you.
I'm fine.
Sorry.
Sorry, I already thought I
Commissioner
already
Kill-
told
no?
him.
And
I'm good.
Leslie?
Jim, you had mentioned earlier referral to staff to look at minimum required shall operate hours for businesses
Yeah.
in the leases to just check consistency of maybe there's categories.
Sounds like we've got some inconsistencies
Early,
between our
late,
leases, what's in the Muni code as just established construction hours, and then the ability of this commission and the planning commission for that matter to impose stricter requirements based on, individual project case by case basis. Sounds like we need to clean up for sure the lease language to kind of coordinate with not just a retail kind of perspective, but to have different uses in mind. So I'd imagine, the childcare center that we just saw likely takes kids in before 8 a.m., right? They probably have earlier hours than a bar would, for example.
You would hope.
If we're limiting everybody to 8 to 6, then technically speaking, you can't drop your child off until 8, right? I mean, it just seems kind of wonky.
And this would be a good time to get input from because we'd be doing this for the benefit of the business owners, of course, right? And they
Right.
obviously want some flexibility, but the benefits of having everybody open like it's been talked about would be nice, right?
Well, yeah, my concern is that we're inconsistent and, we had to think it, since it's one harbor, one pier, we had to think it through, at least through International Boardwalk area, think it through and come up with some common sense guidelines and correct that going into the future. And so we all have a baseline to deviate from when we're looking at CUPs or.
Right.
And the new upper deck dining and stuff too, and when
Yep.
there's acoustic music and when there's amplified. I hate throwing too many rules on this stuff. I guess I'm kind of a libertarian, but is this something for the peer association?
I mean, we could start with them. It's one of those things where you guys could give us some policy direction on what you want to see established out there. And as leases come in, we can make sure that adopted language gets revised in those individual leases. In addition, when these CUPs come before you, we can make sure that the CUP has that specified hours of operation in there that's just unique to the harbor. And again, you can still manipulate that if for whatever reason you have concerns with that particular use. You could further restrict or further elaborate on the hours. But the fact that having kind of a set established hours of operation guidelines, that when these things come to you, it's at least that's the starting point, right?
Right, and also just understanding the mechanism, because maybe the lease isn't the best place to be putting it.
Correct, right.
Yeah, maybe there's another.
I think to develop policy, I agree with Tom, we need some inputs from the businesses and
Right.
maybe it's not just the Pier Association, you want the International Boardwalk folks
Right,
to.
because you have to consider, I mean, the lease is a good mechanism for uses that don't require any kind of an entitlement from this group, right? Like they can just move in and, they're subject to building permits for improvements, but the use itself doesn't need the opinion of this group. So having some hours of operation buried in a lease somewhere, maybe we just need to update it so that those ones coincide with the CUPs,
And we have a set way of, at least we have a framework to deviate
Right.
from.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of information gathering on different categories and like, where are we currently? And then we can,
Yeah, like a
Direct.
boilerplate CUP and,
I had assumed that International Boardwalk would be in the Pier Association, but.
I don't know.
not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, but it does make sense. I just don't think it probably belongs in a lease, because then changing it would be really, really hard, right? You're gonna have to wait however long that lease goes.
True.
like the one tonight, yeah.
Right, like the one tonight,
Right.
exactly. So it just seems like it should be somewhere else. And in fact, the city should have some procedure that says, it is in this conditional use permit or wherever it is.
Right.
And I really hope we can improve business down there too. Like, I really hope the answer for this winter is not the same as the answer for, next winter and the winter after.
Yeah, I just want, I'm just hearing some of this for the first time tonight, and it seems dumb to make them come in at 8 a.m.
Right, oh, yeah.
And to actually hold them to that when other businesses ignore it. And just, I think, if we could come up with some consistencies, if we could get a boilerplate CUP so that we know what we're deviating from and we're consistent, not just because it's a year apart and we don't remember what we did on that last one.
Maybe that could be a referral to staff, for staff to come up with a recommendation on how.
Right, I'm kind of thinking maybe we start out by reaching to the business community, by kind of doing some research of what the existing situations are. What are the rules that Project Barley, as we found out, has to abide by? And then come back with, a story to tell and potentially some options to consider.
Yeah, options on how to
Right.
enforce it, and how, because a lease, if it's in the lease, that's a fairly hard and fast rule at that point. So it
Right.
seems like it should be a lot more fungible than that.
You could ask the property management company too. It sounds like they know them all and are sending
Right.
emails.
Right.
Yep.
All right, are there any other referrals to staff? Yes.
Not so much a referral to staff, but public, there's a holiday boat parade, Saturday, December 10th, starting at 5:30 PM. I know we'll be at King Harbor Yacht Club. Mark, are there other locations for that, or?
Yeah, Moonstone Park
That we used to set up,
stands.
stand, yeah.
Yeah, I just today sent a message over to the chair to see if he was going to take advantage to the reestablished funding for the bleachers, but I haven't heard back from him yet. So the money's there. I don't know if, have you heard anything from him?
I have not. no.
Yeah, okay. So unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that, but obviously you can watch the boat parade for anywhere.
Follow up
along.
on that, Greg?
Sure.
Since that's coming up.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then the other thing that's hanging out that's pretty exciting is we've also done a paddlecraft parade with it. But we got to kind of rethink the timing, because Erin Hansen from Harbor Vibes, she got about 200 SUPs and kayaks out for the witches paddle. And so I just sent a email a week or so ago to the chair of the boat parade, and in fact, she'd contact me asking what the date was. And so I sent a thing to the two of them saying, I think you two should chat, because normally we do the paddlecraft parade at 4:30. I'm not sure an hour's enough time to get 200 paddlecraft off the water.
Right.
So one thought would be, her witches thing is in the morning. So one thing was maybe go ahead and just do that in the morning, and then invite them, the trophy people back to the club. So that's unfolding right now also.
Right, but for sure, the boat parade is set
That's set for 5:30.
5:30,
And-
December 10th, Saturday.
Yes, and it's going to be honoring teachers. And last thing I heard, they were trying to make the theme like something about imagination, like the teachers teaching the kids imagination. I'm not exactly sure where they're on, but it does currently say honoring teachers. That much I know.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Really nice. Thank you, Mark.
That's it.
All right. Anybody else have any commission items or referrals to staff? I have one, which I think you already have it down, which is however much data you have on parking, actual revenue from parking. I'd love to see that.
Mainly the financials, right?
Yes, and however you have it, it'd be just interesting even to see historical trends. Obviously, we're going to be down for COVID, but how that looks. But that all comes up from, how do you handle the 4th of July? Right now, we've got a plan that we should stick with, but going forward, maybe it does make more sense to have, maybe you do make a whole lot more money if you have a flat rate kind of thing. I don't know. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, if you're looking at financials for parking, it needs to be broken down at least month by month, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, at least month by month, but whatever granularity you got, but thank you for that.
What are you going to do with that?
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, a motion to, we got a help, perfect, and we got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, I declare this meeting adjourned. And thank you so much for all your support. Take care.
One came.
It's a light night.
Caesar's over there.
Congratulations, Tom.
Well, thank you.
It sounds like it turns them off, but. Ouch.